One of the most amazing things that happened in this last election is that 4, if my recollection is correct, LGBT members of Congress are now in office. And I think the number before was Barney Frank, wasn't it? Pretty much. And this is a big deal. And there were 4 states where LGBT issues were on the ballot, 3 to legalize gay marriage, and 1 to ban it by constitutional amendment. And in every case, people said, okay, we're for gay marriage. This seems to be the civil rights issue of our era. The American perspectives are changing. We're kind of post-miscegenation, you know. But there are those folks who are saying, nah, not ready to change yet. Dr. Michael Brown is with us. He's the host of the Line of Fire radio program, nationally syndicated, the author of 22 books, including his latest, A Queer Thing Happened to America. His website is askdrbrown.org, as in askdrbrown.org. And Dr. Michael Brown, welcome to our program.
Great to be back with you again, Tom. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The Family Research Council is calling for civil disobedience to block same-sex marriages. How does that work?
Well, I'm not a spokesman for FRC, but what I understand them to mean is that if a Christian in good conscience could not participate in something having to do with recognizing same-sex marriage, they would do it. I mean, we've got a long, rich tradition of civil disobedience on all sides in America.
So this would be like, just as an example, when I was a teenager, I lived in a white neighborhood, and the girl literally next door, the house next door to us, she was a few years older than me. She wanted to marry a black man. Now, this was in the 60s. Her father was so offended by that, he refused to walk her down the aisle. She asked my father to. He did. Our families never again talked. It was the schism, between the two families. But that was an act of civil disobedience on the part of her father. She ended up marrying a black man, and never again, to the best of my knowledge, a decade or so that I kept in touch with them, interacted with her family. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Well, no, it's interesting. My first organ teacher when I was 5 years old was an openly gay man, and he and his partner would come and have dinner at our home. This is early 60s. Then my next organ teacher was a black man married to a white woman that was also ostracized, that was often in our home as a couple. So my thinking is very different on that. I do not insult the civil rights movement by equating sexual desires, romantic attraction with skin color, nor do I equate the
Why not? You're born with both.
No, there's no scientific evidence to say you're born with both.
Okay, well, let me ask you a really simple question.
Literature there.
First of all, it seems interesting to me that there are some people who spend all their time, apparently straight people, who spend all of their time thinking about gay people and what they're doing. And, I asked Dr. Paul Cameron of the Family Research Institute this question, and do you think that you have interests in men, sexual interests in men from time to time? And Dr. Cameron basically said, well, doesn't everybody? And I said, no, I don't.
I guess by that you would be a closet conservative then, because
I'm
bashing conservative, so you must be a secret conservative.
No, I'm. Well, actually, I've been there and done that, But the thing that fascinates me is that most people. Now, I get it that there are a few exceptions, the kind of the Larry Craigs of the world. But most people can tell you how old they were when they realized their sexuality. I mean, I was probably 7 years old, thereabouts, when I noticed that I thought girls were quite different than boys, and there was something really fascinating about them. And I'm guessing the same is true of you?
Yeah, my interest in girls, I mean, as soon as you get past the thing of ooh, girls, when you're like in first grade or something, yeah, I've been heterosexual, and if I've...
Okay, so what do you say to somebody who says... When I first became aware of sexuality, which is long before adolescence. I mean, people, I was attracted to people of the same sex, not to people of the opposite sex. How do you tell them?
I believe every word they're saying, and I have. And
okay, then how can you say they aren't born that way?
Because things are developed in early years of our childhood. Many, many deep things in our behavior and our lifestyle. Plus, there's no scientific evidence that can point definitively to a gay gene or whatever. And look,
There-
people are arguing.
there is no scientific
name
evidence
something
for
that
your
their
behavioral
behaviors
theory.
that we both absolutely deplore. And people claim there's a gene for that, a violent gene, a pedophile gene. So to me, it almost, I want to treat this person as a fellow human being with dignity and respect, but to say I'm not going to
Then why not let them get married?
I'm not going to redefine marriage based on your sexual desires or romantic attraction.
Why?
Because marriage has been in society for a certain purpose, which is to join a child with a mother and father and to have the possibility of procreation. And to say that marriage should just be genderless.
So I've had a vasectomy. I can't procreate. So are you suggesting that if my wife, God forbid, should divorce me, that I should not be allowed to marry?
No, because the rule
Then you're saying marriage isn't just for procreation.
I didn't say it was just for. I said it's for the possibility of procreation and the joining of a kid with a mother and father. But, I mean, that's a whole other subject. I know you wanted to talk on the civil disobedience end, and the fact is no one's trying to stop people from living how they want to live. If my next-door neighbors were a gay couple and they went away, I'd mow their lawn or help them out or have them over for dinner. But I'm not going to.
But you want to stop
if
them from being able to visit each other in the hospital when they're sick, or being able to inherit from each other. I don't understand that.
I'm all for them being able to visit each other in the hospital, just like a heterosexual couple who's living together outside of wedlock.
Well, there's tens of thousands of laws in the United States that refer to the word marriage. Why not? I respect your right in your church to say we're not going to marry gays here. I think it's wrong, and I think eventually we'll come to view that with the same horror that we view churches that, like the Mormon Church, up until the late 70s or early 80s, said they would not recognize interracial couples. But for the moment, I'll say your church can be bigoted if you want, but why should the secular state be bigoted?
Well, the secular state only has an interest in marriage because marriage conveys benefits on the secular state, which same-sex couples do not convey.
Of course they do.
Tom, do you have an issue with polygamous marriages? Because that's in the courts now, too.
This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about marriage equality.
Do you have a moral objection to polygamous marriages because they have a longer history than same-sex marriage? It's around the world, and it's in the courts in America today, and they're using the same arguments. There are gay folks I've talked to. They're against polygamy. So the question is, where does one draw the line? And if I
think you draw the line at monogamy. If you look at this anthropologically, no, there's a very simple. Michael, you asked me a question. Let me give you the answer. There was once a reason for polygamy. And that reason was that 3,000, 4,000 years ago, when it was a bunch of tribes running around in the desert, killing each other in incredible numbers, the number of men to the number of women, the ratio was not 50-50. It might have been one man for every two women or one man for every three women because the men were killing each other off. In that kind of a world, polygamy makes sense. That's not the world we live in anymore. Polygamy doesn't make sense anymore.
Marriage is going to be redefined based on the world we live in. And if the world we live in proves in a generation that it's best for a kid to have a mom and dad, and that same-sex marriage opened the door to polygamous marriage and incestuous marriage, which is all before the courts now, then maybe your views will change. Maybe you sound bigoted in what you say to polygamists, to the 1 million plus Muslims. You sound bigoted. To people in 140 nations, you sound bigoted.
It may well be. It may well be, but I stand by that. I don't think that. But this is not a discussion about polygamy. It's a discussion about gay marriage and why anybody would say that somebody should not have the rights, simple taxation rights. I
didn't get married for taxation rights. You could take them all away. I'm going to be committed to my wife in marriage. Doesn't matter.
Okay.